Unit 2, Philosophy of Science and Other Disciplines. Like any other human inquiry and knowledge enterprise, science also involves philosophical issues like the goals of science, the nature of scientific knowledge, and the foundations of science. What is science itself is a philosophical question through science emerged from philosophy, and philosophy is said to be the mother of all the disciplines and course of time. All disciplines came of age and got separated from the mother. For instance, by 3rd BC, Euclides' work made geometry a science of space. Through philosophers thought this is Plato academy till 17th century. Science was known as natural philosophy, and scientists were natural philosophers. In fact, the term scientist was coined only 1833 by William Benwell, an English philosopher and historian of science. With Darwin's The Origin of Species 1859, biology was cut off from philosophy. The beginning of 20th century saw the separations of physiology from philosophy. By the middle of the same century, computer science hijacked logic that has been with philosophy for more than 2000 years. Science and philosophy therefore are not strangers to each other. In the ancient times, Aristotle and many other philosophers were also scientists. Significant philosophers like Bacon, Descartes, Leibniz, and Locke were influenced by science, and their contributions up to science were also very significant. Great scientists of the 19th century, Maxwell, Hertz, and Helmholtz, gave serious thought to the above mentioned philosophical issues. Poincare, a prominent mathematical physicist, came up with insights into the nature of theories and hypotheses, the notions of explanations and probability. Some philosophical issues in science. To understand certain concepts adequately, science has to go beyond to the realm of philosophy. For instance, the concept of time can't be defined in terms of hours, minutes of durations, as all the presuppose the notions of time, the relation between the scientific theory and the world out there, realistic in instrumental relationship. How do the scientists switch over to the new theories? Is it completely based on logic and observations, or it is through a social process like Kuhan and the historians would propose? IV evidence is generally based on the assumptions that there are pure observation, but there seems to no theory free observation in science. Even to seize the time now as 12 noon assumes that the clock and observer exist independently of each other and not deluded by a certain reason demon, and to accept all the theories with which the clock has been manufactured. This raises further questions. Is there any real epistemic distinction between observational and theoretical assertions? Is there any safe and sound basis of science? What is the meaning of systematically basing the theories on the evidence? Any theory with its universal applicability goes beyond the observable data at hand. Some observational data can yield too many theories, even contradicting one's notions of under determinations. What are the extra factors to be considered to decide upon the correct theory? Its simplicity and predicative power of theories are considered. Are they only pragmatic considerations or some sort of truth revealing indicators? VI philosophical analysis of the aims, method, assumptions, foundations, practices, and achievements of science are to be undertaken as specific. Science will not have time for such aspects. The study of the very language of science, the methods, and the structures of explanation used in science, it checks its validity of arguments used in science exploration of the world views based on important scientific theories to uncover the preference of scientists for deterministic rather than statistical laws or for mechanistic rather than theological explanations, the investigations into the broader implications of science and to the see how the sociocultural factors affect the growth and the subject matter of science. 2.2 Philosophy of Science and Epistemology. Science aims at acquiring more knowledge about the world by specific method of observation and experimentations, and it makes conclusions based on evidence. In philosophy also there is a branch epistemology which deals with domains of knowledge. What is the difference between knowledge and mere beliefs? Can one be sure that one can know at all? What are the things that one can know? What are the requirements for a propositions to be a piece of knowledge? Are some of the questions that are critical to both the discipline. Science justifies it knowing through specific methods. However, human already pointed out that the inductive reasoning widely used in science can be completely justified as its conclusion involves claims about unknown elements. The imperative inference, where the inference contains some factual content which has not been present in the premises, decides on something about the unexperienced based on the experience. Science functions on many axioms like the fundamental uniformity of nature, the future will resemble the past, etc. Where no a posteriori nor a priori. Philosophy of science critiques the method used in science. Scientific methodology. The term method means a way to achieve an end, and the scientific method is way to achieve scientific ends is scientific knowledge. Greek terms meta after Hobbes. The basic steps of scientific methodology, starting the problem, success, and progress of science greatly depends on the clear understanding of problem at hand, framing a hypothesis or tentative solutions to the problem based on one's creative and original imagination, observing and experimenting, studying an event phenomenon under varied conditions, controlled by the investigator with or without instruments, interpreting the data, making the resulting data figures, pointer regarding graphical representation, etc., intelligible and useful by means of analysis, synthesis, comparisons, analogies, models, etc., and drawing conclusions and inferences, the aim of the whole process. There are mental devices used in scientific methodology. Logic, the use of inductions to arrive, the causal connections between events, and deduction to arrive creation conclusion from the given premise. Induction gives new information but need not be certain. Will deduction gives certain conclusion but not now. One classification to bring order into the multitude of complicated data. Comparison and analogy especially useful in forming the hypothesis and in interpreting the data. Models of basic representations from the noise to the unknown and mathematics a powerful device to make complicated concepts industry on understandable. Scientific methods in the modern times. Through Aristotle in his prior analytics and posterior analytics used both the inductive and deductive reasoning. Francis Bacon in his Normum Organum 1:1620 emphasized only the method of inductions for scientific inquiry, but with the emergence of modern science, Modern Science 1719 19th centuries, and needs was felt to look for a new understanding of method of science, and two predominant methods of science emerged: i- inductivism and hypothesis. Inductivism, hypothesis. First, the method of science is the method of induction. The method of science is the method of hypothesis. The founder Francis Bacon, René Descartes, rooted in empiricism only those ideas that are traceable or to sense experiences are to be treated as knowledge. Based on rationalism, at least some portion of human knowledge can't be traced to and thus independent of sense experience. Important features of sense certainty and breadth: science has to look for definite knowledge and more encompassing knowledge. Novelty and depth: science has to go beyond to observational. It has to search. It has to reach the depth of reality of on universalness behind the observed. Since science has to be certain, it has to limit itself only to the observable phenomenon, then proceeds from particulars to general conclusions through induction. Science must remain from the beginning till the end at the level of observation, so there is no reference to in unobservables. Mere generalization in terms of observations is not enough. Science has to explain the observable in terms of the unobservables. PI, the aim of science arrive at laws that is establish inductive generalizations to generate hypotheses to explain what we observe. Hypothesis mean the statement regarding unobservable entities and process. With inductive visits are anti-realist. They hold that the theoretical terms don't refer to anything real as empiricists. For them, only observed reality is real and nothing outside exists. They are only useful tools. To date means tentative solutions to a problem. Hypotheses are realist theoretical terms. Like electrons, protons, etc., refer to really existing entities through they are not even given to us in observation. By the middle of the 19th century, science had to deal with many unobservable entities or processes. Example: Franklin's field theory of electricity, vibratory theory of heat flow, Existential theory of burning, and neurophysiological theories of David Hadley, etc., which took science beyond observational methods of inductivism within philosophy too. There were objections to show that there is no rational justifications for induction. Problems of inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is common. Sensical and highly successful in sciences and practical lives. However, Hume astutely argued in the Treatise of Human Nature 1739 that there is no logical justifications for the principles of induction. Einar Hansen points out the actual problem with the inductive thinking. It is the problem of showing how the inductive principle cannot once is synthetic in that its negation is not demonstrably self contradictory, yet necessary in that its negation describes no intelligible state of affairs until 1947-48. The decisive problem with induction is that to justify induction we need to involve inductive reasoning itself. It can be illustrated as follows. The principle of induction works successfully on occasion N2, N1, N2, N3, N4. Therefore, the principles of inductions always works. In the past of few decades, some number solutions have been proposed in order to defend the inductive reasoning which have reached experience and predictions 1938 and the theory of probability 1945 in satisfied with the pragmatic justification. Nelson Goodman replaced Hume's old problem of inductions with the new problem of inductions. Kant offered a transcendental deduction of a principles of universal causation. P.F. Strawson offered an ordinary language dissolutions and thereby making Hume's problems is only a perceived problem cannot appeal to inductive institutions for analysis of all these proposed solutions. See Beasley Salmon 1967 proper 1935 logic of scientific discovery did away with the need of inductions in science because science adopts hypothetical deductive method. Note for explanations of this method kindly see block 2 unit to historism. वही वीआईपी लोगों की ही बात है वीआईपी लोगों की प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती है अभी फॉर एग्जांपल कंसीडर किया अरे वीआईपी नहीं उसमें छोटा बहुत बड़ा सा परेशान करेगा ना अंदर ज्यादा तो फूकेगा ना सस्ता मिलता है तो पूरे महीने का लेके रखता है अंदर भी पॉलिटिक्स चालू है ये बोलेगा थोड़ा पैसा करेगा तो बोलेगी 2 सिगरेट का पैकेट दे पैकेट Bayesian theory of probability or reasonable solution. Bayesian theorem proposed by Thomas Bayes, an English nonconformist clergyman or renowned mathematician of few of the Royal Society lived. Thank you, sir. 45 years. 300 ना? सर यहाँ पे आओ
चलो 300 नहीं
ऐसा उधर भी वही चलता है
तो वाले नहीं है इसमें चेंज
काम करेंगे
so 500 legal spinning वो ये अच्छा ना है
आपने दिया
इनको इसमें कितना है
1 टाइम
तो 100 दिया था मैम ने
हाँ
वो दे दो
actually ये ले लो इनको दे दो टिप
क्या बोले देने का बराबर गर्ल्स को हाँ ठीक
क्वालिटी बाहर काम नहीं है।
Thomas Bayes, an English nonconformist Sir German or renowned mathematician of Fellow of the Royal Society, lived between 1700 to 61, is an attempt to supply rational basis for inductive reasoning in science. The degree of certainty of the conclusion of an experiment is measured by the probability of the conclusion by probability based mean the rational acceptance. The probability of any relevant is the ratio between the value at which an expectation depending on the happening of an event are to be computed and the value of the thing expected upon its happening. 1763-76 as quoted by Barry Gower 1997-96. Solomon list 5 leading philosophers: Carnap, Reichbach, L.J. Salvage, Nelson Goodman, and Proper, who show inclinations towards the Bayesian theorem directly or indirectly. Basely, Salman 2002, 397, 99. Howson and Obrecht explain the Bayesian confirmation in simple terms. The relationship between the empirical data evidence and the hypothesis is critical because it helps in accepting or rejecting a hypothesis. A piece of evidence can be confirming or undermining or natural to the hypothesis under the test. Say H hypothesis, E evidence, PH the prior probability, and probability PH the posterior probability. E confirms H if PH and D disconfirms H if PH, that is, if the posterior probability is more, the evidence confirms the hypothesis and vice versa. When the confirmation C is at maximum PEH 1 and the H logically entails E when the this confirmation is at maximum PEH is equal to 0 and then H is refuted. No further evidence will confirm it unless the refuting evidence or port of background knowledge is revoked. Posterior probability depends on prior probability, but this dependence is related to the scientist's attitude towards ADHOC hypothesis, their preferences with regard to simpler hypotheses, and their decisions with regard to the celebrity of the hypothesis. The authors are in fact very optimistic that Bayesian approach is the only one capable of representing faithfully the basic principles of scientific reasoning. Colin Hauser and Peter Urwach 1993. Factors in the scientific appraisal, for instance, lactose claims that the states of mind like one's beliefs, commitments, understanding, etc. of the physiological approach don't afford the cognitive value of a scientific value of theory, which is actually independent of the human mind, which creates it or understands it. Its scientific value depends only on what objectives support these conjectures. Having facts, lactose Lakatos 1978 one, but the admirers of Bayesian reasoning seem to suggest that the so-called objectivities of scientific methodologies deliberately close their eyes towards the indecipible were subjective elements in the scientific reasoning. That is why a leading proponent, L.J. Wood, argued precisely that the subjective is it, that is, Bayesian state his judgments, whereas the objective is it sweeps them under the carpet by calling assumption knowledge, and he bask in the glorious objectivity of science. http://www.cc.ubca Murphy Bayes ruled HTML given the scenario. Hausen is confident that eventually we shall all be subjective Bayesians. Hausen 1991-82 for more on the objections against probabilities and Bayesians kindly see Karl Popper and D. Miller 1984 434. Finally, conclusiveness always escapes us in inductive reasoning. Nevertheless, it need not make us nervous or skeptic towards the whole enterprise of inductive reasoning. Through we can always reject what has been inductivity arrived at, we can still consider is it as valid reasoning since they have as little chance in fact of going wrong. Miller 1989-7. It seems to be reasonable to accept inductive reasoning as a species by itself.
तुम्हें ऐसे बातें तो हो गया था नहीं लग रहे थे एक्चुअली क्यों नहीं लग सकते नहीं लग रहे थे हाँ मैंने भी देखे वो नहीं लग रहे थे कपल
उसका मैंने प्रोफाइल देखा था डीपी में देखा तो ऑफिस वाला तो ये मेरे को लगता है ऑफिस वाला ही है
सेटिंग नहीं गर्लफ्रेंड नहीं उसकी टाइप का दिखा दी
वो बंदा दूसरा दिन आया है
आया
बंदा
बोला ही क्या ना आऊंगा मैं आने का बोलो ना
आया तो बोला मैडम ने बोला मैंने तो
डिस्काउंट बता दिया
मैडम ने बोला डिस्काउंट कितने तक क्या 2000 में मैडम कस्टमर था मैडम
मैं को हंसने आ रहा था
बड़ा हमारा कुछ ये मैडम कस्टमर है मेरे लिए हम जैसा तो वो वैसे ही बोला ठीक है
कभी मैं मैनेजमेंट में आ जाती हूँ कभी मैं गाइड बन जाती हूँ पूछे तो मेरे को बना देते कभी
2.3 Philosophy of Science and Metaphysics. When science come out with theories especially about the unobservable, such circular questions can be raised. Do they portray the world as it is, or are they only a convenient tool to understand the natural phenomena? Science not only describes but also explains how and why a phenomenon takes place by explaining the fundamental nature of things, about this existence, about its causation, etc. Since enters the domain of metaphysics, we focus only on these two aspects of realism and causality, the scientific realism and anti-realism. The question of realism and anti-realism arises in the context of the unobservable entities like various radio waves, electrons, quarks, genies, atoms, and subatomic particles, black holes, etc. Through they are not observable, science is able to acquire knowledge about that nature, behavior, constituents, etc. 20th century physics gives a picture of reality. This is more abstract and far removed from common sense. At this juncture, the questions of justifying the ontological status of these unobservable entities arises very strongly. There are two opposing trends in philosophy of science with regard to the existence of unobservable entities: scientific realism and scientific anti-realism, where the former claims that the unobservables really exist and the latter denies it.
বললে কি এরকম নয় কিরকম তাহলে তোমার তাহলে কিরকম ভাবে বলছিল সেটা তো আমি কিছু বলিনি তুমি কি বলে মেসেজে আর কিরকম ভাবে বলবো মেসেজে আর কি করে বলবো মেসেজে তো ভালোভাবে সে যেরকম अरे ভালোভাবে তো পাঠালাম না
फीलिंग्स
कैसा
आज कब मिलेंगे अब तो क्या मिलेगा
ऐसे तो तो
कभी कभी कोई
तो ऐसा बोले
तब ऐसा होता है कि रात को आए फिर तो मन भी नहीं करता है हाँ, इतना लेट क्यों आए
हो गए
The basic claims of scientific realism. First, unobservable entities exist. They exist independent of our minds. We do make statements about them with truth value. Either these statements are true or false depending on how the world is, and we must believe in their existence and consider much of them as knowledge. For instance, the kinetic theory of gases speaks about the molecules in random motions because that is what happens in a gas. Thus they demand three kinds of philosophical commitments: metaphysical mind, independent existence, semantic literal interpretations of the theories, and the correspondence theory of truth and epistemological. The unobservable entities do exist and they count as knowledge. The basic claims of scientific and anti-realism.
ওটাই বলবি 10টা বেজে গেল আরে তখন তুই খেলবে তারপর আবার ঘর যাবে তুমি ऐसे भी नाम खराब लड़की लोग का इंस्टा पे हाँ ना
Only what is empirically observed does exist, and all the other so-called unobservable entities don't know most of the anti-realistics.
कालिया आएगा कालिया तुषार
सब उसको नाम रखा सब
कहाँ से बना के जाता क्या है यार आप
वो भी अच्छा दिखता है आप तब से बाल लगा रहे हो
बादल नाम चिल्ला के बोलते पहले उसको देखते पहले अलग दिखता था अलग मैंने बहुत डार्क था बहुत डार्क कलर भी छोड़ दो उसको इतना लाल ही नहीं
बाल से ऐसे
बास तो नहीं मारता है बास तो छोड़ता भी बास मारता है वो वैसा नहीं मारता है हर जगह से बास मारता है वो और बास होता है उसको आजाद छोड़ते हैं अंदर उसको सामान लेकर जान मैं घर से ना के तो बास क्यों मार रहा है घर तो ना के बड़ा गुस्सा आता है वो वाले हमारे सामने बैठा था वो होता भी वैसे अजीब सा कपड़े पहनने का ढंग नहीं एक अजीब सा बैग रखा क्या रहता है जगह
Rational because of its practical success and growth in accumulations of knowledge. So the issues of rationality in science and realistic view of science are different. The unobservable entities are only useful instruments to make calculations simpler or predictions more feasible, and the description about them are not true reflections of the state of affairs in the world. They are different types of realist in science. To be an anti-realist, it is sufficient to disagree with any one of the above mentioned 5 claims. Claims of the realist includes any reductive empiricist, any social or constructive deeds like Kuhan, Denny, constructive empiricist like Bass and Fraser and Denny B, and they are also onshore of the major groups among the anti-realist. Instrumentalism. Scientific theories don't describe the world, rather than are tools to approach the world and to relate a set of observable set of affairs with other set theories about the unobservable entities are not to be taken literally as they are only logical constructs used as useful instruments to relate with the external world. World theories are judged in terms of their efficiency and usefulness, and not in terms of truth, falsity. Science in theories are only instruments. They don't have predictive powers. Conventionalism. Scientific theories are only conventions. The theoretical entities don't exist, as nothing beyond observational reality exists. The concept used in a theory says force and mass. In the Newtonian theories are mere conventions. However, they are empirically significant and useful to explain the world of facts. Descriptive Platonism. The theoretical claims of the Unobservable entities are not convenient descriptions of reality as they don't refer to anything that actually exists. Remarks: the debates between realists and anti-realists seems to go forever. For anti-realists have been explained how scientific theories, if they are just convenient tools to deal with reality, produce practical success. On the other hand, realists have to deal with the problems with the theory leadness of observation and the fact the whole enterprise of science is increasingly seen as a product of psychosocial and cultural milieu of a given time. More arguments against pure observation will be given in historicism. Unit to a black to all observational terms are theoretical constructs to a certain extent. Star, planets, light, rays, gas, etc. acquire their meaning to some extent only from the theoretical context in which they occur. From example, instrumentalists argue that only the billiard balls are observable and real, will the force and friction that exist among them are only tools invented by physicists to understand certain physical phenomena. But one needs to realize that the concept of a billiard ball also involves some theoretical but one needs to realize that the concept of a billiard ball also involves some theoretical constructs like individuality, rightly made of a particular substance, etc., without which we can't speak of those balls. Realists argue that unless we assume the unobservable really exist, how can one justify the efforts of the contemporary scientists to unify various kinds of theories and to arrive at one theory of everything? Toy, however, instrumentalists would reply that the efforts to unify theories are still worthwhile because the scientific community will arrive at one big and unified instrument.
चलो बैठ ध्यान दो
Bye.
याद अगर रख दिया इसने पैक कर दे नहीं तो पेपर लग जाएगा चल हाँ ओके
Unifying us baseless as science is only a assortment of various tools of deal with variety
इसको पिकअप करने
हाँ मेरा सिस्टर है
of problems. Nancy Cartwright,
क्लाइंट
1983.
आ रहा है नहीं ना पट जाके
इधर ये बैठा है ना ये भी बैठा है
Further, the predictive future of science gives science a distinguishing characteristic for science, and this future is possible only when science speaks.
देखो कौन सा सिस्टर ने पैदा किया अभी नया गोवा से आ रहा है इसका सिस्टर कब बोला ये पहले साल 2 साल से तो बोला नहीं
उसका भाई गोवा में रहता है
उसकी आइटम भी बैंगलोर गई थी याद है ना अभी
अरे नहीं अभी जस्ट फोन आया देखो अभी 10 मिनट में आ रहा हूँ
आ रहा 10 मिनट नहीं मेरे को वो नहीं देखना है क्या लिखा है तू नाम चेंज करता चुप चुप
अरे तो पहले पापा का फोन आया तो 45 में पापा बोले वो पहुंच गई हूँ
अरे जाना जेनी भी है कौन सा क्लाइंट है
तो मेरे को हेडफोन दे देना मैं आता 10 मिनट में आता हूँ 10
कुछ भी
मिनट
रहेगा
में
ढूंढो तो फटक से फोन मारा शाहरुख को कुछ भी नहीं समझ में फटक
कहाँ
से
रखे थे?
ये मैंने किधर रखा रे
और कैमरा ऑन रखने का 24 आवर्स
हाँ हाँ
कर उसको हटा दे
यहाँ पे देखो ये इसके
एयरपोर्ट मेरे देखो इसका अंदर
मैं निकाल रहा हूँ
हाँ मैं 10 मिनट में पहुंच रहा हूँ
जाके आओ ना बाद में ढूंढो क्या आपका जो हेड ये था
हाँ
वायरलेस
वो किधर है
यहाँ पे तो रहता है हमेशा
हाँ
मॉर्निंग वाले के 2 दिन से क्या होता है रात को मॉर्निंग वाले के क्लाइंट होते हैं
आपके बैग में देख लो जाते चले जाओ
यहाँ की लड़की उठा के सुबह में डाला सुबह का लड़की शाम में डाला
क्या क्या रे
तो मैं आपको नहीं बोलता
क्या
Theory has two descriptions of reality given these circumstances.
क्या चीज
Their
डाला
author is coming up with nouns. Understanding of realism and instrumentalism seems to have more problems than
सुबह वाला क्लाइंट क्या कर रहा है सुबह वाला
realism.
क्या कर रहा है
Example on presentative realism by A.F. Schlambers in What is this thing called Science 1992. It is realism because we need to assume the independent existence of reality and acknowledge the practical and predictive power of scientific theories.
भाई
It
मेरा
is
हेडफोन किधर गया री
on representative because it does not involve correspondence theory of truth between theories and the reality out there. The causality and science. One of the significant aims in science is to explain events or phenomena in terms of natural laws of cause-effect relationships. On the natural law is expected to have authenticity, a measure of certainty, and it must be universal, that is reliable in all situations at all the times. For example, Newton's theory of gravitation is true at the times accidents, unlike laws, don't have predicative power. Cause-effect relationship. How causes are related to effects is of philosophical interest. Logical necessity causes necessitated some events that are referred as causes of sufficient for their effects. The relations of causal necessity between particular events makes one an inevitable consequence of another due to the inherent connection between the cause and its effect. The effect must happen whenever and whatever wherever the cause exists. If laws are universally valid, there must be necessary relationship between the phenomena. Thus when one heats the water, it not only normally evaporates, but it
Yes, sir.
must evaporate. Constant conjunction Hume. There is no logical justifications for any necessary connections, but only constant conjunction exceptionless regularities between cause and effect. Cause and effect, as we are conditioned by these regularities. किधर फेंकते हो? In our expressions, we form an idea of causal necessity and mistake. Think that second. किसका है? बुद्धा का है?
झापी कर रहे हैं पपी झापी कर रहे हैं
और रे
बुद्धा का है सर?
अरे मुझे भरवे दोगले छड़ के साले हो गया तेरा हो गया
Between them is only a
ये भर गया आपने
physiological expression, and nothing is based on sense impression, since any cause are perfectly separable in our mind from their effects. We can imagine any cause without any absurdity, without its accustomed effect, or even with effect with which never accompanies only from any experience. I learned that when water is heated, it boils instead of freezing, but there is nothing tells me that the latter can't happen. Therefore, since anything might cause anything, an effect can't be inferred from a cause. Both are conjoined and not connected. Empirical necessity. The cause-effect relationship is only a hypothetical or conditional necessity given a sort of natural laws. Boiling of water and bathing is just a consequence of the law of nature. If there were different sets of laws, the effects could have been very different. Such an empirical analysis look at causation not in terms of what can and can't happen, not in terms of what is and what is not possible,
Sorry?
but slowly in terms
We have aroma studies perennial.
of what does happen. Remarks.
All the type services available. So sorry. इनको services available. So
Problems with the Hume's notions of
वो
constant
आगे बोल
conjunction.
रहे हैं.
आ गया तो आने देना
Basing on this, one can distinguish genuine causal relations and accidental conjunctions. Not all constant conjunctions can be taken as causal relationship. Example: whenever the minister visits my loan it rains. Even this statement is always true. The visit of the minister can't be the cause other end in the human understanding, the directions of conjunctions can be figured out since constant conjunction has only a relationship of symmetry, whereas the conjunction is the one of asymmetry. Does the constant conjunction mean that sometimes the causes don't result in this effect? It is only a probabilistic calculations. Problem with Hume's notion similarity when similar to a are always followed by things similar to be the idea of similarity is not clear. It is exactly similar. If so, the only thing exactly similar to an event is that event itself, and it can't be reduced exactly because at least the space-time factors will differ. Or is it more or less similar? Humans claim that the similarity must be in certain critical and relevant aspects, but what is the basis to decide upon the relevance if they claim that only those changes which are similar in relevant respects are always followed by another changes which are similar in relevant respects? Then the analysis of the causal relationship becomes tautological. Logical, for it just says that those changes that are similar in the respects that causally connect them with their efforts have similar effects. Since the concept causally indispensable not only in our practical lives but also in sciences, there are reports by philosophers like D.M. Armstrong, Friedrich Stoll in the late 1970s.
What are the differences?
Sorry?
What are the differences? How will I get to?
What kind of a pressure massage? Like medium, light, hard?
Hard.
Hard pressure is deep tissues. They don't.
Okay. What is this?
Abhingam is Ayurvedic massage.
Implies constant conjunction but not conversely.
We'll try with that.
This necessitations, of
They don't.
course, is
Yeah.
not an
It is Ayurvedic massage.
priori, rather what necessitates is an empirical matter known by a posteriori inspection.
We'll give it a try. How about this?
Swedish is classic massage, regular massage. Medium.
What is the Thai massage?
Thai massage is Balinese without oil.
Without oil, huh?
Yeah, Balinese.
Morning, when I spoke, she said about 3,000 rupees.
3,000 is starting, no? This one.
So she said about the Thai only, I guess. I did not know her name. Spoke to her in the morning.
Yeah, starting from
Morning,
3,000.
afternoon, I spoke about 135.
135.
Yeah.
Yeah, just starting from now 3,000.
Okay, what else will be there? I mean, is it just a massage or any other things and other services also?
So I will discuss only for massages. I am the manager.
Manager, is it?
Yeah.
Give me a minute once again.
2.4 Feminist accounts of science. In the recent year, feminist sociologists of knowledge and postmodernist criticize science from various angles. From the early 1970s, feminism began critiquing science. The research on the gender when in the fields of science is highly complex and multifaceted and includes issues like the research on the presence of women doing hardcore science, the ill treatments done to them in the scientific circles, the gender partiality exhibited in the content methodology and epistemology of science, the selections of the problem for scientific investigations, especially in the fields of biology and health science, the decisions and policies drafted by the males and so on. Feminists point out that scientific research and gender based, for instance, medical researchers use only the males of any species for their study. Feminist accounts of science not only reveal the gender based theories, practices, and assumptions of science, so most of them go further to show how this androcentric prejudices shape the very notions of rationality, objectivity, and scientificity. They substantiate their claims with case studies that there have been systematic omissions or destructions of women gender issues which have resulted in failure conclusions. Case studies shows that even contradicting claims are given in order to claim the superiority of the males in terms of smartness, intelligence, and physique. Robertness argue for the natural tendency for women to have subordinate role in the society and family, and Foster Schelling maintains some evidence is consistently not considered, some questions are never raised, hypotheses are ignored, and some experimental controls are never instituted. A critic 2000 feminist critics point out the gender bias of Darwin in this theory that evolutionary development exclusively belongs to males. The hunter-gathererness, the androcentric bias serves as an auxiliary theory in other disciplines like
थर्ड फ्लोर में जाना पड़ता है
anthropology to justify the behaviors and social roles of the male. Similarly, Francis
थर्ड फ्लोर में चला है ना
Bacon made use of gender metaphors to refer to nature. He saw nature as female as a wild and uncontrollable female to be restrained and controlled. Feminists argue that a dualistic and detached pursuit of science to study nature should be removed in order to save women from male dominations. Even the scientific revolutions of the modern science is seen as the reflections of gender ideology, whereby the mechanistic worldview looked at the earth and nature as something to be dominated and controlled by humans.
हाँ
Women's experience and women's epistemology must be taken into consideration in order to have a holistic picture of science. In a reconstructed feminist epistemology of science, according in Anne M. Clifford, the scientist is not an impersonal authority standing above nature and human concerns, but a person whose thought of feelings, logical capacities of institutions are all relevant and involved in process of inquiry.
बैठ
Chilford
किधर रह रही हो बैठो ना
क्या हुआ
इसको एक्स्ट्रा सर्विस मांगता
1990 to 77, they argue that the
हाँ जी
Gender does not influence the investigations and the conclusions
नहीं आपका
arrived
रिकॉर्ड में नहीं दिखा रहा है सर
therapy and the even that
मतलब ये नंबर पे तो है नहीं कुछ
feminists can point out the base in the masculine science and even produce better science. Heading 1986 and 1991, Wende Kohli points out that reason and reasoning need to be addressed historically within the context of gender differences of for centuries down the history. Masculinity and reason have been treated as synonyms, making feminine inferior and even subservient to masculine rationality. Fleming 1992 and Lloyd 1995 all are not ready to buy the arguments of the feminine. Some don't see even theoretical possibility of feminist critique, while Reynold Geary in 1998 argues for such possibility. Feminist convictions that women can produce better science and feminist epistemology is privileged as challenged by the many critics. Cassandra Pinnick, 1999, for instance, does not find any evidence to support such convictions through the feminist may exaggerate. There must be, I think some grains of truth in their claims, for the traditional understanding of traditionality seems to have not paid attention to non-cognitive elements of thoughts and feelings. The rational mind of men and the intuitive mind of women need to be the collaboration with each other for the betterment of humanity. This distinction reveals the complementary nature, not superiority-inferiority divide between men and women. If women are also involved in the important decisions and policy making, we can certainly exert a better human touch in all those policies. For instance, it is a painful irony to see in India that will produce millions of surprises of grains that are thousands of starvation rates every year. If women are involved more and more in the administrations and decisions making process, I strongly believe that with their intuitive material touch, they will not easily tolerate the wastage of food grains and the starvation's death. With their inborn quality of dividing a stock among the children wrongly and equally, they will certainly bring down, if not totally eradicate, the hunger deaths on the streets. Two point five values and science. For the Greeks of pioneers of the Western thought and culture, there was no significant distinctions between science, knowledge, and values. Good science and philosophy, objective and subjective, and factual, descriptive, and normative, evaluative. The problem arises with the mechanical view of nature or Newtonian science. The epistemological and methodological revelation in science and philosophy, initiated by Descartes, insisted upon a sharp distinction between objective and subjective dimensions in the knowledge-seeking enterprise. In science is said to be rational and objective, factual and experimental values are beyond the purview of since. However, such value natural approach of science is strongly challenged today by philosophers of science, sociologists, historicists, humanists, and even by scientists themselves. For instance, the very fact that there are goals in science shows the need of value consideration. Science involves several types of goals: epistemic goals, example, advancing human knowledge with explanation and predictions, teaching science to next generation. The practical goals, example, increasing the technological power, improving standard of life. Third, goals of scientists, their freedoms, readiness to take risks, social responsibility, mutual respect, efficiency at the level of scientific publication, subjectively in publication, intellectual properties at the level of Personal relations among those involved in science, mentor-minute relationship, harassment, reporting misconduct in science, sharing the preserving resources, and so on. Thus, the need to discusses the role of value judgments and ethical considerations in science has become more circular and urgent with the ongoing experiment of for technology, ecological degradation, and the bioethical issues arising from biosciences of the 20th century. Value neutrality of science is usually based on two factors of fact value of dichotomy. Science is or what is not what out to be. Science can only describe, not prescribe. Pereira 2005. But now it is realized that both facts and values are truly independent. There does not seem to be any significant difference between the so-called scientific values like justification, coherence, truth, etc., and moral or aesthetic values. From Putnam 1982, truth is considered as a scientific value, but relevance, interest, the intentional significance of such truths in social context are also equally important. Scientific values, the latter may be called as extra scientific values, but they are also equally important to improve this value considerations from a scientist is to remove his or humanity as well. One can't suppress his or value judgment unless in one is ready to destroy him or as a human being. And as scientists are not seeking for merely objective truth knowledge, but truths that are interesting, useful, and valuable to humanity as a whole. Therefore, knowledge, truth, objectively, and so on are rooted in values and human purposes. Be skeptical attitude. Skepticism arrows authoritarianism and orthodoxy. Subjecting everything to a severe scrutiny, it demands openness to check whether one is misguided or not. It is a part of rationality in science. However, consistent and absolute skepticism is not possible. Even in science, one needs to be reasonable in being skeptical, renoid, and Nisbet argued that no one is consistently skeptic but only selectively skeptic due to our guilt. NBSS, even hardcore skeptics, therefore become the victims of confirmations bias, the tendency to look for evidence that is consistent with our beliefs, based assimilations bias in assimilating information that suits our belief system and belief preservance, the tendency not give up a long research belief through there is pressing evidence against them. Ranillo and Nisaba 2007 50 to 51. Moral consideration of science and the social responsibilities of science and scientists are no more at the periphery of philosophy of science, but they take the center stage in since does not since developing a biotechnological revolution is not a non-social concept. Therefore it would be highly irrational or to overestimate the powers at the disposal of science and the scientist in humanization of advances in science and technology. It is still less rational, in fact irresponsible, to ignore the active socio-ethical humanistic status taken by the scientific community and within 1989 52 as long as scientists are humans who are part and parcel of human society, scientists are bound by at least certain final values. One such value demands science to enhance and enrich humanity and alternative its sufferings and the damage to the environment.